Don't worry about it. It really is not a big issue, and you'll learn to just totally ignore it after a day or two.
The fact that it's stealing our souls as we speak.
Except for that minor issue. But you don't need your soul anyway, so it's okay. You know, gosh. It's like kidneys, right? No? Maybe only get one. Well, whichever. Don't worry about it. It's cool. So the reason I'm recording these is, for one, if you guys miss a class, you can watch it. If you guys miss part of a class, because you need to go to some other class, say the Quenya one, you can watch the part that you missed. It's useful for posterity and for people who can't attend this class for whatever reason. There's lots of people on the internet who are actually interested in this class and can watch this. Hello. Basically that's it. And it's also useful for me so I can go back and watch myself talk and be horrified at my ghastly accent and all the times that I say and you know, and the various other things that I say weird. And so, that's also something I do a lot. But you only notice that when you listen to yourself recorded. So, who's heard of Conlangs before, or Conlanging? Show of hands. Vaguely? Have you never?
I don't really know much about it.
Okay, so you just were introduced to the idea by looking at the details and said, this might be interesting? Or what?
I'm in Linguistics 100, and
Okay.
the professor recommended it.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, who was your prof?
Nicholson?
That's interesting. I not talked to them. But great. That's actually really cool. I'm gonna have to go thank them. Is this she or
She.
She.
With Lena Nicholson.
Lena? Okay, yeah, I'll know that actually. Always remember to thank the profs who pin people. No, seriously. Okay, how have you heard of it? Just Esperanto, Elvish, what?
Elvish and Klingon.
Okay, you?
I heard of it. Well, I heard of Esperanto from reading one of the Stainless Steel Rat books, and then I tried to teach myself a little bit of Quenya once, a couple of years back. And Klingon, of course, I watched Star Trek all the time growing up, so.
I see. I'm sure we have a very high geek quotient in here.
Good Star Trek.
It's not a bad thing, don't worry. You're in good company. Good rich company also. Okay, that's pretty common. Oh, as a side note, this is a somewhat unusual format for me. I don't like being in this arrangement. I don't like being at the head of the class. Ooh, oh my god, I'm the teacher. Normally what we'll have is sort of a horseshoe around the side blackboard, most likely, so that it's a lot more conversable and I'm not separated like this. This makes me uncomfortable. And you don't really need to raise your hands, just interject. I'm a geek, I go by hacker culture. You want to interrupt me? If it's relevant, it's okay. If it gets to be an issue where I'm trying to make a long point, I'll just hold you off, but that's usually not an issue. So if you want to say something, just say it. Okay? So why were you interested in this class? Any ideas? Hopefully.
It's kind of an aspect of linguistics which held my attention long enough to be a major in it. And it's something to add to my study of this one.
What year are you?
I'm a junior.
Okay. So are you interested as sort of a way to learn linguistics or as a way to apply it, or?
I guess it's as a way to apply.
Okay. Similar?
Sounded like fun, and I've always liked language. I'm majoring in linguistics as well.
Sounded like fun. That's always a good thing. So instead of doing more digression into pragmatics right now, we can get into that later at the end of the class. I'm going to just start. So what we're going to be doing in this class is a little different than last year. I don't know if you've seen the videos of last year or anything. like that. But it's fairly different. What we're going to be doing is basically creating the language in class through the next 13 weeks, I think, 12 weeks. From the beginning to the end, the easiest way to direct this as a goal is it's going to be required to translate the Babel text. Are any of you familiar with that? Nod, shake heads, no one. Okay. Anyone read the Bible? Yes? Yes? No? Okay, that's fine. I'm not a Christian. I don't care if you are. It's good whichever way. But the Babel text is pretty well known, not because it's a religious text. If anything, we Conlangers, if I could use that term, sort of take it as a mission to extend this. So the basic idea of the story is humans get uppity, God wants to stop them, and so he makes them all speak different languages, and then they can't understand each other, and they start hating each other, and they disperse. So we create more languages. I'll quote it now, so you have it in mind. This is from the King James edition, Genesis 11, verses 1 through 10. Quote, "And the whole earth was of one language and one speech. And it came to pass, as they journeyed from the east, that they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. And they said to one another, Go to, let us make brick, and burn them thoroughly. And they had brick for stone, and slime they had for mortar. And they said, Go to, let us build a city and a tower, whose top may reach unto heaven. Let us make us a name, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth." Can we say 4? Yeah. "And the Lord came down to the city and the tower, which the children of men builded." 6. "And the Lord said, Behold, the people is one," 6. "And they have all one language, and this they begin to do, and now nothing will be restrained from them which they have imagined to do. Go to, let us go down, and there confound their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. So the Lord scattered them abroad from thence upon the face of all the earth, and they left off to build the city. Therefore is the name of it called Babel, because the Lord did there confound the language of all earth, and from thence did the Lord scatter them abroad upon the face of all the earth." It's a pretty simple story. Those of you who are taking 2 units will be translating it into your own language. That's probably a little scary at this point. That's okay. There are other options if you want to do a different project, but that's the recommended one. The reason I chose this passage is, for one, it's sort of one of the 3 or so standards for first-time translations for Conlangs. The flag depicts the Babel story. You'll actually see a real-life flag. I ordered some for the conference, which I'll talk to you guys about later, but it's cool. And this is what we're going to be trying to translate in class. So that puts a certain set of constraints on what the language we're creating is, right? Can you think of any constraints? Can you formulate what those are compared to just generically make a language?
Well, you come up with certain vocabulary words that will match the source text.
Anyone else?
We need to have different tenses so we can make the grammatical mistakes that they made in the text.
Yeah. Anyone else? No? Okay. Those are actually 2 basic things. You need structure and you need content, basically. Now, the way we're translating it is not going to be word for word. So, for example, what you said about the grammatical mistakes, don't translate that. That is an affectation of the grammar that they're using. It's just a side effect of the fact that it's old and poorly translated. Sorry. But it is. And you're going to be trying to translate the content, the meaning. This is describing a story. All language fundamentally is defined by one thing. It is an attempt to communicate an idea from one person to another, or if you want to make it broader, from one entity to another. human-animal communication or human-computer communication or whatever. Or human self-communication. You can be writing a note to yourself in case you forget. Though I don't know if that counts as two entities or one. But it's fairly simple. So what do you think the first step would be of creating language? Any idea? How you'd go about it at all? Blank looks?
Create a couple of basic words and then try to construct like the most basic syntax and then sort of build on it as you go.
Okay, that is definitely one way. Actually, how familiar are all of you with basic concepts of linguistics? Phonetics, phonology, syntax, morphology.
I had Ling 100 last semester and then Ling 15.
That's plenty.
I'm a CS student. I'm familiar with a lot of syntax and formal, like BNF
Okay.
syntax and stuff like that, but not
That'll
much
help.
of morphology and stuff like that.
That will actually help you pretty well with syntax, but you'll need to learn a little. Anyone else have background in this? Ling 1, Ling 100,
Yeah.
anything related? Sort of?
I took like 5 last semester and then
That's good. You're in what?
100.
Oh, that's good. We'll actually probably vaguely parallel the pace of the Ling 100 course. Not exactly, and I'm not explicitly trying to, but that's sort of how it comes out. In a sense, what you need to do is build from a core up, or the opposite direction. The way we're going to be doing it is bottom up, with a little bit of top-down design. So, in the first place, our top-down design is we want to translate this. So that means it needs to be human usable. It needs to be capable of expressing this in some way. It needs to have a certain amount of vocabulary. It needs to have a certain amount of particular abilities to express things, like past tense, like plurality, things like that. Or we could decide to abandon those. And there are some languages that do. Japanese has optional plurality. If I say kodomo, you don't know if I'm saying one child or many. And that's a perfectly viable option. So the way we're doing this is sort of by committee. This is not a democratic class. This is a benign dictatorship. Sorry to disillusion you guys. But I try to make everyone happy, and the only reason I'm doing this class is for fun. And I'm not really getting anything out of it. I don't need the units. If anything, it's extra load for me. But it's fun, and that's why I'm doing it. I hope that's a good part of why you guys are here. I realize you guys also need the extra units, which is fine by me. So, first off, let's give a temporary name for our language. It's going to change, so suggestions? Anything? It doesn't really matter. A name. What is this language called? What?
Scratch.
Scratch. Fine. Oh, by the way, I'm going to need someone to take notes for me, preferably 2 people. Do any of you usually take copious notes, etc.? No? No one?
Not unless I have my laptop with me.
Oh. Okay, well, we'll see. We'll address that. Scratch. So, how do you communicate a language? Do you have a concept of what the modes are?
You can speak it, you can write it.
You can speak it, you can write it. Is there any other?
There might be
There are ways,
gestural
yeah,
components that.
sign languages and that sort of thing, but I
Yeah.
like to have it adapted to something like this.
Yeah. Frankly, it would. Signed Conlangs are really rare for a few reasons of pragmatics. For one, there's, except for David Peterson's sign language IPA and a couple similar transcription things, there aren't any really good ways of writing down sign languages. And so they're hard to codify, they're hard to think about, etc. Unless they're codified for some particular language, like ASL has a couple transcription systems, but they are limited in ways that ASL are limited. Isn't. So speaking and writing, can you have one without the other?
Yeah.
Which way? Or
Spoken language is
Either way.
about written languages. And
can you have a written
I
language?
imagine you could have a written language that isn't spoken.
Good, good. Imagination is a good thing. Yes, of course, you can have either way.
I think
Well,
one
for a
of
deaf
the-
person, oh, sorry.
Sorry.
One of the Elven languages is primarily written, I believe,
Hmm.
because it was the older language. I don't remember which, it might have been Sindarin.
But it presumably had a spoken
Had
form.
a
It was not
spoken form.
intended to just be written.
Yeah.
So there are no natural languages, to my knowledge, that are intended to just be written form, or that are grossly different than their spoken. The written is like a completely different language for all intents and purposes from the spoken. They're usually vaguely based on the syntax and the manner of speech and whatnot. And this leads many linguists to say, well, written languages are sort of just a BS sort of way of writing down spoken languages, and it's the spoken that's primary. I don't buy it, but I'm sort of a radical in that sense, which is fine. I don't care. So that gives us a choice. We're creating a language. What do we want it to do? Do we want it to be able to be written? Do you want it to be able to be signed, spoken, some combination of the above? Votes?
I would go for spoken, maybe or not written.
Who cares if it's spoken? Show of hands. Who cares if it's written? Show of hands. Okay. So we want both, right? Do you guys care if it's signed? Not particularly? Okay, so we want both. That's fine. That actually is more or less the standard. Yes, it is. So the easiest way to start this, if you want to be complete, is to start with the basic building blocks of God. There are other ways to do it. You could basically just not bother trying to work out the building blocks and sort of assume it. And this is what most people actually do for their initial languages. They sort of they just start making up words straight, and they don't really think about how that's built up from phonology, from a phonetic inventory, from syntax, from phonotactics, all those things. They just basically assume. And what that usually means is it recreates their primary language. That's what practically always happens for people's first language. And this is why you've got a huge number of Euroclone Conlangs, because practically all Conlangers speak English or some European Romance language as their first language, though there's plenty of not. My apologies for Henrik and all the rest of you guys. But most do. Actually, do you guys have any idea how many Conlangs there are in existence? Name a number? Really, just guess.
1 million languages.
You, yes. Yes, you. 500? 1,000?
2000.
Well, what qualifies as
Actually, that's actually a good caveat, and it's hard to say. There is very, how shall I put it, contentious debate on that issue, what qualifies a language as a real language. But it can be easily said that the number is well in the thousands, and the growth of them is dramatically accelerating. Conlangs, for one, are more popular because The Lord of the Rings just came out again and people are all enthused about Elvish. There's more Trekkies than ever. We've got that. And there are various other reasons. And it's also just coming more well known. It's still not known. Half the people in this department have never heard of it. Half have, which is an improvement. Most people who do it will not admit to it. I'm probably at the extreme uncloseted end of the scale, but I know people who are like professors, who are really well known in the Conlang community, and totally closeted at work, and totally closeted in other situations. Many people don't tell any of their friends, oh my god, I learned languages. And etc.
Of course, now we're all in videotape for everyone to know.
Yeah, yeah, sorry, I just added all of you guys. You'll get over it. It's better to be out. So, because we're not just trying to make a language that is meant for just building names or some sort of small subset of use, we're actually more or less a full language is required. You don't have to have a huge amount of grammar. You don't have to have a huge vocabulary to translate the Babel text, but you need a fair amount. And that puts a certain standard, which means that we're going to have to build it up from the beginning. So the very first thing that we're going to do, since it's both spoken and written, is build the phonetic inventory. What does this language sound like? How many of you have heard the term phonetic inventory before? I'm sure you have. Okay, you have? Have you? No? Have you? No? Okay. Have either of you two taken linguistics courses? No? No? Okay, that's probably why. It's okay. Can one of the rest of you explain what it is?
Sure. A phonetic inventory is the set of sounds that are allowed in a language. There's a statement that's made that there are a certain number of sounds the human vocal tract can make. It's represented by the IPA chart that she's holding there.
Print it out. Really. It's in the reader, print it out.
Languages use a subset of that total set of sounds the human vocal tract can make. So in English we have a set that doesn't include sounds like, which is the voiceless lateral fricative, but languages like Welsh and the Celestian languages have it. So sounds that, pardon?
It's a cool sound.
It is very cool. It's one of my favorites actually. So there are sounds that other languages have that English has, and there are sounds that English has that are relatively rare in languages of the world, like the interdental sound where you put your tongue between the, you know. Most languages don't have that sound, but English does because we're weird.
Some languages have as a sound.
I like that one. It's one of my
It's
favorites.
a labial fricative voiced.
Voiced by
I
the
believe. For what it's worth, I'm not a very good phonologist. I will probably make errors in trying to pronounce these things correctly. Don't sue me. I'm not a professional, etc. Disclaimer, disclaimer. But yeah, what he said is basically a really good explanation. The range of sounds that exist in a particular language are limited. English does not have clicks. English does not have a whole lot of nasals. We've got and that's about it. Whereas Sanskrit has a whole lot. We don't really have a whole lot of palatized things, but Arabic has a bunch, Russian has more, etc. We don't have anything in between R and L. Japanese does. La. That's radio exercises, calisthenics. It's weird. And that's also why they have trouble pronouncing the R, the L distinctly and recognizing it, because for them it's sort of somewhere in between and whatever, it's okay. Arabic is a good language that has very few vowels. And the range in which they pronounce an E, for example, or an is pretty wide and would encompass distinctions that we do make. Father versus father. Father is not a word, but we do have right? Apple, things like that, right? So the way, one very important distinction that you make that I just sort of alluded to is what is a contrastive sound. So the way you tell a difference between two sounds, whether they are contrastive, is can you find a word pair? That's the easiest way. Fat, gat. Are those two different words? Yes. Do they mean two different things? Yes. Therefore, and g are two conceptually different sounds. However, what about, let's see, something that's not crude. Shark and shark. Did you hear any difference?
What are
Are you Russian?
No.
But that's a. Did you? Yeah. Okay. That's actually a difference in Russian. There's sh and there's xie. I added a vowel onto that because that's how you pronounce the letter. But that's actually an important distinction, and there's like sheep versus sheep. And I know most of you can't hear the difference on that, but it's okay. And that impacts what sounds you choose for your language. This relates to goals. What are you trying to do? Who's speaking this language? If you're trying to make an auxiliary language, which means a language that you want the whole world to be able to speak, Esperanto tries to do this. Volapük tried to do this. Volapük is the ancestor of Esperanto. There's many others. Then you're going to want to say what languages have what set, what do the people come with, and what are common to them. For example, are we going to have a contrast with R versus L? Japanese speakers will find that hard to learn. Are we going to have a contrastive voicing? Some languages don't have very much voicing difference, like sh versus je, etc. Do we care? Vote. Do we care how many people are worldwide are able to speak the language that we're going to be creating in class? Yes? Show of hands? No? Okay, good. That means we don't care. That's cool. That means that we can use the exotic ones, like things like that. Yes, those exist. I can't really pronounce it very well. Teif, I think, is the teif thing is a Ethiopian sort of flatbread, pancakey, spongy thing. It's really good. Have it sometime. But I'm sure I hardly mispronounced that. So let's try this. We'll go around the room. Yes, everyone has to participate. Sorry. And everyone contribute some sound. If you know the IPA for it, tell me. That's good. If you don't, we'll figure out what it is. All the sounds that we'll be using are going to be from the IPA. That's for convenience purposes. Later, if you want, you can make languages that have this sound in them. It's a sound. It's possible that it could be in a language. Or
Oh.
I just made it. That proves that it exists, but we're not going to have it. Sorry. So, you.
I can do the J sound for them.
Any sound you want, contribute.
So like je.
Je.
I don't remember the. Oh, that's right. I don't know. I would think of a good one, but I'll just say eh.
Eh. Is that good?
That's the one that looks like the epsilon.
Epsilon. What's epsilon? I forgot my Greek.
It's like
Backwards.
Looks like a
Backwards Greek.
backwards third.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, why not?
Okay, cool.
Yep, that's the one.
The,
Say that again?
the,
Is that from Arabic?
um,
What other languages do you speak, by the way?
I speak Hebrew, but that's not in Hebrew.
No? I thought it was.
It's,
That sounded like
It's
voice
like
beaver
a
fricative?
voice.
yeah.
It's not feeler, it's like.
It's like you.
Oh, is it uvular?
I think it's pharyngeal. Yeah.
The best way to write it in English would be GH.
But it's not like
I think
I
that's-
think it might be a voice uvular, like,
So I think
French.
they
Voice
have it
uvular or
first.
voice
that.
feeler?
I'm not sure.
it's not like ah.
It-
Isn't that
it's
like-
a
That's
voice-
a
That's
voice
voiceless.
velar fricative. Or is this supposed to be a voice velar?
I think it's uvular.
I think
Well, when you
that
did-
sound is in Arabic.
I'm not sure.
I'm not good.
I know it's in
Do it
Farsi, I
again.
don't know the.
If it's in Farsi, then it's in Arabic. And
Yeah, I
think
think
it's
it's in
that.
Arabic, I'm pretty
I
sure.
think it's that one. But I can look it up. I took Arabic at one point, but I don't speak it very well.
Set? Yeah.
Okay. So, do any of you notice anything weird about that sound?
It's a,
It's
Two.
two sounds
Yes.
together.
Yeah. Blank stare. Oh my god. Yeah. It is. So this is actually TS, or something like that, connected to show that it's sort of one sound for certain purposes. We'll get into that later.
Oh boy.
I don't know what you're rewritten there.
Sorry. Okay.
I could change if you want.
No, that's fine. That's perfectly fine. Is that an ejective? No. The ejectives are more powerful than that.
That's just a bilingual click, isn't
It's
it?
certainly
It's
not a
is that
colonic sound.
It's implicit.
I think that is a
The air goes in. It's
No,
implicit.
it's not. For me, it's neutral. Hold your breath and do it.
Yeah, I'm not breathing when I do it.
Can you hold your breath and pronounce a sound?
I'm
That's a good
holding my
test, by the way. I can do it, I think. So I'm gonna say that's a bilingual click, and if I'm wrong, someone correct me later. By the way, that applies always. If I make a mistake, correct me on the spot. If I make a mistake and you realize it later, correct me then. I don't care if you do it in class, or after class, or by email, whatever you like, correct me.
I'm pretty sure all clicks are kind of implosive that way because you lower the air pressure in your mouth by dropping your jaw for a lot of them.
Yeah. But you said, I thought you said it wasn't implicit.
Good point.
I think all clicks are though.
Yeah, I think that is implicit.
Again? The backwards one?
Yeah.
Okay. Another thing I remember from Arabic. I think that's a velar stop, if I remember correctly. That's a Q. Or a uvular, right? K is velar and ka is uvular, right? Are you, say it with a vowel, ka.
Ka.
Ka. Ka.
Ka.
Yeah, so you're using a uvular. So that's a Q.
Trill. You can't do it.
Not really well.
Oh.
That's okay.
The trill R.
It doesn't matter if I
Yeah.
can. A trilled R.
I
Okay.
like that word.
Like Bach. Bach.
Let me think. What was-
Is that like a French C,
I forget.
like a little voice towel figure?
Is that right?
I don't
It's
think that's not
voiceless.
voice.
I don't think that's
I mean,
voice.
it's voiceless. I mean,
Yeah. So that's a C pseudo. I think.
The voiced interdental.
Okay.
Because the French sounds in there. Ed.
Yeah.
Not fitting, but the other one, yeah.
Maybe you guys can tell it's been a little while since we've used that today, but that's okay. So, do these things have anything in common? Do we have any that are in the same categories? Like, do we have any that are in the same area of pronunciation, or the same style of pronunciation, or voicedness? Can we group them in some way?
We've got several fricatives
Yeah.
Okay.
We only have one vowel.
so far.
Blocking it. One vowel, so far. We can change that or not. Doesn't necessarily have to have more than one vowel. Doesn't have to have any vowels, actually, technically speaking. And there are some languages that don't. Not any natural ones, though. Okay, so the one thing that we want to consider when we're doing this is how natural do we want it to sound. That's sort of a very debated question in certain ways on how it plays out. But at basic, natural languages don't usually have one sound sort of standing by itself. It's relatively rare to have only one click in a language. It's rare to have it's rare to have both voiced and voiceless sounds, and have a voiceless version of one thing and not have a voiced version of it. That's pretty rare. Things like that. Do you guys know what I mean when I say voiced, voiceless? Yes? No? That's good. Awesome. Do you guys know what I mean when I say place of articulation?
Yeah.
Yeah? No?
it's like,
Yeah, exactly. Like, if I pronounce, there's two L's in English. There's a dark and a light L, quote unquote. The dark is palatalized. So there's la and la. except the dark one never occurs at the front of a syllable.
It's velarized, not.
Yeah, it's velarized, which is why Americans cannot pronounce the Russian name Ilya. L is a front L. In English, it would never occur there. It would only have a dark L. Ilya, which is horrible to a Russian ear. That happens to be my birthday. So what that means is we need to fill this in a bit more. Okay? So again, we're going to go around, and what I want everyone to do, we're going to go around the opposite way this time for kicks. Pick any letter that we already have, any sound I should say, not letter, that we already have, and come up with something that's similar to it in some way. In the same place of articulation, the same manner, the voice or sort of voiceless counterpart, something like that. Okay? Or another vowel. Another vowel is okay.
Can I buy a vowel?
Yeah.
For sh, sh, what is this?
I think it's similar to the Bach languages have the often have too.
Could is just as in a regular K?
Yeah.
Do this stuff?
Sure.
Ch with a t.
Yes.
T and sh.
Is that African?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's called an affricate. There's only two.
What exactly are we supposed to do?
Look at. Do you remember IPA at all? No. Do you remember the sounds that were said?
Sort of.
Sort of.
The
Okay.
roof
So
one.
come up with a sound that's similar to something that was said, or a vowel. And that's it. Yeah. Something that's similar to something already done. Sorry again?
Or,
We had a trilled R.
uh-huh,
Do you want to have a regular R also?
sure.
Okay.
It's the
Upside down.
Upside down.
Yeah. Incidentally, in English IPA, we usually just write the regular one because it's a pain to write the upside down one. But we actually only do the upside down one, unless we've got imported words.
How many vowels do we got?
One.
Just one so
Okay,
far.
how about E? Just
E.
yeah.
Lowercase I.
How about
Ooh. Ooh. Is that the regular one?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the U.
Sun.
Let's see. A.
Say it.
A. The regular E.
Okay. With the off glide?
No, just
You're
that's.
pronouncing it with an off glide.
Oh well, I was just trying to make sure that it came across as A instead of
A.
A.
So do you want the A, or as
That's
we
just
have
it.
in English, or not? Like.
Yeah, let's put it there because it'll be easier to say. So A. So with
Isn't
the
this a diphthong?
Yeah.
it's not quite
It's not exactly a diphthong. It's called an off glide.
because
But
we do
I
end
think it depends
we end
on
it with
how.
an.
It depends, and we'll get into that later. But for example, French has examples where you don't have the off glide.
Schwa.
Schwa, up.
Yeah.
Hmm?
Yeah.
Eh,
What's the capital R?
up. Okay. Okay. So has everyone written down the room and CCNs? If not, do so now. And if you haven't, copy from someone else. Let's see. I'm too lazy to arrange it in a table right now, but that would be the ideal thing to do. Put it in a nice IPA style table, then you can see clearly where everything groups, etc. Now, we have, for example, a few things that are a little unusual. We've got a trilled R verse and a regular R, for example. So, one thing we need to decide is, are these contrastive? For example, if I say, do we have a T? No, we don't. But we do have a K and we do have an E. So, rek versus rek. Do those mean different things? Or could those mean different things? And that's something that needs to be decided. Votes for, those being different words. Votes against. Okay, so what we've got is our first real phoneme. And I'll just write it like that for convenience sake, because it doesn't really matter. What that means is, in certain circumstances, we've got a surface and an underlying form, basically. And I know certain linguistic theories have a totally different way of explaining this, but I think this is the simplest, and this is how I learned it, so this is what you get. What that means is, for the purposes of semantics and syntax and all the higher level stuff, these two sounds are identical. However, they change in contexts, and with that, we might as well create our first context rule. So, there's various ways that you have contexts that affect how you pronounce things. I can't think of any offhand. Can you think of any examples in English, for example, where you pronounce a particular phoneme differently?
Voicing an S or not. Like when
Voicing
it,
At the end of a
at
word.
the end of a word.
Oh,
depending
yeah.
on-
Plural.
Dogs or cats.
Dogs or cats. Yeah. Though those are contrastive because we have zit versus
Like-
sit.
You're thinking more like a stop aspiration.
For example, yeah. But I think they're actually both they're both examples. They just occur at different levels. But for our purposes right now, it doesn't matter. So where would you pronounce a r versus a r? Can you think of, generally speaking, first off, can you think of examples of context where you would change what something sounds like? Just name. When it's before a vowel or after a vowel,
What is in the stressed syllable?
it's a stressed
So if
syllable.
a force is voiced or not.
Exactly. Or more usually when it's within the same consonant cluster as a voiced or an unvoiced. Another thing that's really rare in natural languages is to have, I actually don't know if this is violated anywhere. I'm sure it probably is. It's really, really rare to have voiced and voiceless sounds in the same consonant cluster. Consonant cluster means you've got syllables are all based on some sort of syllabic sound. Usually that's a vowel, but technically it doesn't have to be. It can be any continuant, really. For example, is a continuant. I can do it as long as I want. So I could do and I never did a vowel, I think. Do we have any continuants? Yes, we do. We've got a sh, no, sh is a zh. All the vowels are continuants, obviously. What was this one again? Yeah, I guess so. It's hard. Those are all continuants. So, yeah, so before we do that, let's actually do this first. Phonotactics is a fancy name for something that's relatively simple, though it usually turns out not to be, which is how are syllables arranged, how are words arranged sound-wise. In English, we've got a bunch of consonants, then a vowel, then a bunch of consonants. And we don't have to have a bunch of consonants, like we have the ka is a perfectly okay thing. We've got a, no consonants at all. Japanese has one consonant, or fricative, and a vowel, and that's it. You can't have more. Oh, and there's also syllabic N. So, how do we want our syllables to be structured? So I can give a few examples And just think about yes or no whether you want these to be viable words or syllables. For example, ye, so beef, beef. How about the? How about k sh kshi kshi? What about the opposite? Shki shki.
It has a room.
Yes, I know. Thank you.
Oh, okay. You want to give me the keys while I'm here?
Oh, sure.
Sorry to disturb.
Thank you. So kshi is okay, but is shki shki?
Yeah.
I can pronounce it, but I'm Russian. So
Shki.
shki.
Yeah,
I think that's actually a word.
ski.
No, it's not a word, but it's used. Piroshki, for example. Piroshki. Actually, I don't think that counts because piroshki. But regardless, a few others. What about, can we have a syllabic non-vowel? We don't have any nasals, which are fun ones, but
Can we add an M?
hmm?
Can we add an M?
Sure.
And
M.
Are we limited to these sounds that we chose right now?
No.
Okay.
These are our starting set. They will probably, how shall I say, multiply, breed, something. So, for example, can we have schmook, 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 schmook? Is that a valid syllable? Votes for, votes against, for? Against? Okay, looks like that's outvoted. How about mech? That's simple. So things we've already said are okay. CBC, CB, CC, V, for some values of those.
Those, by the way, are consonants and vowels.
Yeah,
Just
sorry.
not obvious.
So one way we can shorthand that is optional consonant, consonant, vowel, optional consonant. So to test this, is this consonant required? Can we have just e as a word? How about just e? Or just
N.
For that matter, does count as a vowel? Can you have just
We have syllabic.
Syllabic N.
Can be a word? So, sk, kark, or something like that. The rest of those aren't really in, but is that okay?
I'd go for syllabic.
Yes?
Yeah,
Yes?
sure.
Okay. Cool. So we've got as technically a vowel for the purposes of phonotactics. But it's evidently pretty restricted because we can't have schmunk, schmunk, we voted against. But we can have schick, right? So it's restricted somehow. But let's actually keep this for now. It's a decent start. And we can always elaborate on it later, which is the grand tradition. So, when would r and r change? For example, how about which sounds better? R or r? Kr, kr, or kr? How about zr or shr? Do you notice what I'm doing in those?
Let's say retroflex and an onset.
Retroflex on an onset, so do you want to translate that?
When it comes before the vowel, we get the r. So
Directly before or anywhere in the onset?
Um,
Incidentally, this is onset, rhyme, coda. And yeah, that's about it.
Maybe if it's the last consonant before the nucleus,
Okay.
it's retroflex.
Vowels also
and
called
it's
nucleus.
elsewhere.
Okay. Do you guys understand what that was?
I'm
Nods?
just making shit up.
Nods? Yes? Understand? Okay. Agree? Vote him down?
Can you repeat what you like?
So, what that would mean is, for example,
I should
immediately before the vowel, it's trilled, right?
Wait,
Is it right?
before the vowel, it's retroflex.
Not true.
Non-trilled.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. And everywhere else it's trilled. So, for example, we could have CCVC. So, we've got a K. We've got so this would be trilled or non-trilled. This is non-trilled because it's right before the vowel. Whereas that would be trilled.
Wouldn't it be easier just to say if it was reversed? Because you can actually.
No, that makes more sense.
That's
If
true.
you
Yeah.
Kri versus
You had it trilled before the vowel.
Or.
Any opinions? Which do you think is more natural, a trill before a vowel or a non-trill before a vowel? Votes for trill before,
Oh,
votes for non-trill before? Okay, so that just changed. So, one way to write this, you can learn this or not, I don't really care as long as you have some way of expressing this. There's standard forms. So, R changes to our context of, or actually, yeah, it's untrilled most of the time, so. That's right. So what it says is the phoneme R changes to a trilled R when it is before a vowel. Does that make sense? Okay. Pretty simple, really. And that basically solves that. So now we have one phoneme, which is this. This doesn't necessarily have to do with anything to do with letters, just to make sure that's distinct. Are there any others of these that we'd like to combine into one? About like could versus could is a good candidate. Voicing is a good candidate. So versus sh, th versus the. The click and the trill actually are potentially candidates. Versus might change in certain contexts, and they're otherwise identical. Yes, it does make for a little list, but. Opinion? Sorry?
I like for the trill and the if it's the end of the word.
Which two?
The voice bilingual trill.
The-
And the click?
So
The
if it's
click
the end of
word
the word,
one?
you can click.
If it's the end of the word, it's a click?
Yeah.
Anyone agree?
yeah, sure.
Okay, so we've got a new one. So the way you determine usually which is the dominant form is where does it occur most of the time. So we're gonna say it's this. Pound sign indicates word boundaries, or
Or
yeah,
syllable.
word boundaries. Is it syllable boundaries
So
also?
that's word boundary.
No.
I mean,
Word
word
boundaries.
bound,
What's
but it
syllable
could-
boundary? I forget.
Syllable boundary
Like a
is, it
bound.
has the bracket, it has a sigma.
Oh yeah, that's not weird. It doesn't happen much. You know?
There's also a morpheme boundary, which is a plus.
Plus.
Yeah, that also doesn't happen much, fortunately. And, okay, so any other good candidates for merging? The Arabic style, I can never pronounce it, you do it again. You.
Me?
Yes, you.
The?
Yeah. What he said. To me, that sounds actually a lot like an R. Does that sound like any of the other?
I'm not necessarily pronouncing it right, but I mean for
No,
it to be a
I think
voiced
you are.
th.
I think. Oh wait, a voiced huh?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah. No, a voiced th. So.
ch is already voiced. You mean ch like it exists in Hebrew? Hebrew has two
No,
H's.
the voiced version of
ch.
th.
I think we use the instead of
Yeah.
which is
So it would be to g as ch is to k.
Yeah, I think then this is it. Am I mistaken? No. So, do we want to leave these still as contrastive or no? Votes for merging anymore? Yes? No? These are all contrastive? Votes for no, these are all contrastive? Votes for I don't care? Okay, well, we'll leave it at this for now. So, can anyone tell me, other than you, how many phonemes this gives us? That is, do you guys know, first off, do you know what the difference between a phoneme and a phone is? Nods, shakes head. Okay. These things in slashers are phonemes. In brackets are phones. That's going to be consistent. The difference between a phoneme and a phone is a phoneme is the sort of psychologically real thing that words are made of. When you write out a word, you will write it first off in its sort of base form is as a bunch of phonemes. When it actually comes to pronouncing the damn thing, then how you actually pronounce it might change. So for example, we could have a word, and this gets a little complex once you get into contrasting, which it really is. But let's put it simple for now. Let's say we've got, okay, let's suppose that this is the real form of a word. Kri. No, this is regular kri, right? But we decided that before a vowel, this gets pronounced as kri. So this is actually kri. Okay. So this is the phonemic version, this is the phonetic version. And your phonetic inventory is all of this stuff. That is, what are all the possible sounds that could escape somebody's lips? The phonemic inventory are, what are all the possible sounds that would make a difference in meaning, basically. Just take the clause for all of this is, people argue, especially linguists, and I'm simplifying. But, yeah. Does that make sense to you? More or less? Okay. Good enough to go on? Okay. So, we've got a basic sound system. That was pretty fast. Right? We can elaborate on it still. And we've got a basic phonotactic rule with evidently certain conflicts that we haven't resolved yet. For example, we don't have, what was it? Key? We don't have? Urki? No, I'm not even pronouncing that. It's hard for me to do it without a vowel. Urki. Yeah. RKI. Can you pronounce that? Without inserting a vowel? Urki. Yeah. I'm doing it syllabically. Yeah. I'm inserting before that. But, yeah. So this isn't really the system. There's exceptions, but that's okay. There will always be exceptions, and there will always be nth drafts. Trust me on that one. And we've got two sound change rules. That's cool. So we've also got, this is one phoneme, and then we've got click. And that also sort of resolves the issue of having one click. It's still kind of weird, but it's possible. And that's fine. Conlangs can be weird. It's okay, really. Don't feel constrained. One thing actually that I'm going to require for those of you doing the 2 units and doing the final project, it cannot be a Euroclone. You're not allowed to copy English. Make it significantly different. Or if your primary language is something different than English, make it something different than the primary language too. Sorry for those of you who speak more than a language, that's more constraints. But the idea is you always are going to be making a lot of assumptions about how you think language works. And one of the things that, for me, I think is the most interesting about Conlangs is pushing the boundaries of what that is. And part of what that involves is going to be making languages that differ from your assumptions about how it works. As a tangent, for example, this will come up later, so it's not a complete tangent. For example, spirit is an interesting word in English. What does it mean? Not you. You. What does it mean?
I mean, the original meaning? Or,
What does spirit mean? I'll give you the answer to that as you will.
it could be like charisma, it could be a type of drink, it could be like a ghost. Other,
Yeah. So, for example, if I were to say the spirited spirits drank spirits spiritedly while spiriting Sprite? No. Those would probably all be different words. Probably. They might not be, but one of the really big tip-offs of someone who's creating their first language is those would all be the same word. Because what does spirit mean? Well, it means spirit, right? And you've got, you can spirit something, and you can drink spirit, and of course, right? Doesn't everyone know that? Well, 4 or 5 words. And if you want to, you can insert a period before or after the word. Okay? We're assuming that this language has the concept of sentences and periods and things like that. Which is, I know, a very large assumption on my part, but let's make a few concessions to normality. So, actually, let's start with you and go this way, just to make it a little different.
Wait, what am I doing?
You're making up a word, as many syllables as you like, and you can insert a period before or after it, although if you insert a period before it, at this point, we've got a very, very short sentence indeed.
Okay. Right.
Again?
Right. Just like the R sound and the A sound?
I don't remember, did we have one?
We didn't
Oh.
have an A.
Oh, we
We
did?
do now.
Okay.
Actually, that's an ass. So that's an upside down A, right?
No, it's the AE.
Oh, yeah.
what's that called?
Ash? I think it's called Ash.
Yeah.
Okay. It can be short, it can be long, whatever you want.
What's the other sound that, was it you made, I guess?
Add to add, by the way, to your.
Huh?
Again?
Huh?
Can you spell that for me?
I don't know. K-H-A?
Kra,
Huh.
kra, kra,
Yeah.
kra.
Yeah.
Is that kra, or is that kra? Ah.
Huh.
Ah. So this is a
We
different.
gotta add that one too.
So this is our regular I, right?
Yeah. I think it's
It depends
I've
how
written
far
it
back
in
it
cursive.
With a cap. It's an A with a cap like typed.
Yeah. It's like the type thing.
Oh, that one. I hate writing.
You do like the candy cane and then a little circle. There you go.
Sorry.
C, and then epsilon, and then esh. Period.
Suk, like TS, the one TS, and then ook.
K or K?
Like that.
Okay.
No, it's here.
Is that mark?
That's the, yeah, with the retroflex.
I'll write it this way for convenience.
I didn't have the in there, because we said only syllables could be CC, VC.
Yeah.
So I'm getting rid of the
I
So
thought
just
there was
here.
Here.
Here. Here.
Got it?
CS, and bilingual.
That's what the rest of them.
You can do it. You can duplicate it, there's nothing to prevent you from doing that.
I'll change it a little. How about T? So the TS, the T, Ash, Africa, yeah, that's right. E, not E.
Oh, sorry.
The bilingual click.
Dishkar.
Again?
Dishkar.
Dishkar.
Voice at the
Sorry.
the B thing.
Is that another? Is that right?
Yeah.
I wasn't really here for the entire time, but
That's okay.
I'll try one. It's Kiri. Like
Yeah.
I was thinking KHIRI.
K-H-R-I-I. R-I.
Or IR. Here.
Again?
KHRI. Does that work? KH.
When we use the same
Which
thing.
H did we have?
We didn't have
We
like,
have-
We had the, like,
We had the.
We had the-
weird one.
we had the uvular.
What I can't really do. What he can do. Do we want to have a regular H also? We can combine them?
It's trying to
Yeah,
it's
same.
complicated.
No?
I don't think
Okay,
that's
so just his one?
yeah.
Can you pronounce what he just did?
But well, I think he was using the like the C with the tail.
What was that again?
So
are you sure it wasn't like?
Let's see. How on the way to Berkeley?
Sounded like they used
Is that right?
that nobody else can.
Okay, so, is that what you wanted?
Okay. What's that?
What is your,
How do you pronounce that? I was gonna say clear. Like there'd be two syllables in there, but if it's not possible then yeah. Okay.
can someone else pronounce that?
CC?
I don't think you can do the K and the Ch together.
Yeah, 'cause it's like.
They're too close to be able to like differentiate without a vowel between them.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
okay.
I think it is pronounceable.
Yeah.
We could say that these may be joined in certain. So.
How about,
Wait.
I think I'm also a bit lost.
That's
The
okay.
sounds we have to choose from are the ones you had on the lower right-hand corner?
Yes.
Okay,
You can look over and so.
what is the one, second from right on the top line sound like?
This?
No, the one you have, the K,
Before?
the K array. I just don't know what the symbols are.
This one.
No, the one on the top line,
Top row, second
The
one
K
from the
array.
right.
That's just
Cra.
cra.
just craw.
Cra.
Oh, from the left.
The R is
Second
trilled.
from the left.
Okay.
Yes.
Do we have like
We have an untrilled R spell.
do we have like a re?
Sure.
Like sort of okay.
We do that?
Yeah.
Why not?
Sure, we can do that.
Is that it?
Excellent.
I guess yeah.
Okay.
Suits.
Again?
Suits.
Suits.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so we have our first two sentences. Presumably there's a period here, or maybe this trails off like Japanese. No? Does it? Is this a full sentence?
Sure.
You
Sure,
get to
why not?
decide.
Yeah. Why not?
Okay. So this, do a few people have this written down? Yeah. Now, we haven't really created a morphology at this point. We're sort of assuming one. But I think for now that's okay. And we can back create one. So how about just propose what do you think this means? Note, this leaves room for a lot of sort of assumption. This isn't going to lead to a logical language, sort of inherently, unless we create more and then erase the old stuff and recreate it based on what we now know about the language, which happens a lot, actually. So let's start with you and go this way.
Alright.
Just make up what you think this says, either literally or what the topic matter is, or word for word, whatever you like.
How about a pirate punched a baby? It cried.
A pirate punched a baby, it cried. Okay?
Suits kind of looks like dogs, so
Dogs?
I'm just gonna do the standard quick brown fox type of idea.
A quick brown fox jumped
Jump
over
over
to
to
the dog.
his dog.
Okay. Possible.
3 turtles stepped on dragon's feet and they were burned alive. At the end, I was like, it reminded me of like this name I remember reading somewhere. So
What?
like this science fiction novel I used to read. I don't know. For some reason, it triggered something. I remember like a dragon being involved. So I'm
Okay.
thinking Suits probably means dragon. So
Or it could be somebody's name.
or it could be something.
These could all be, we haven't defined parts of speech or verbs or nouns or any of that, or if we have a difference between verbs and nouns, not all languages do. Yeah, I know, it's weird, but it does happen. They could all be ambiguous. Make something up, yes, you.
Okay.
What's your name, by the way?
Dan.
Oh, actually, whenever you go around from now on, unless I call on you by name, tell me what your name is. One of the requirements to pass this class is that I know what your name is. This is actually not a trivial thing, although it may sound that way. I'm really bad with names. So what that means is you're going to have to participate and say your name enough for me to remember when they ask me what your grade is. Okay? David?
Daniel.
Daniel. Okay. See?
This is a good sentence. This sentence, however, is infinitely better.
That's great.
Okay, I like that. No, that we're not doing literal translations necessarily, unless you say you are.
Right, great. How about I am dead, never tickle a sleeping dragon, follow my example, or something like that.
Followed by example.
How about I am dead, don't try tickling the sleeping dragon.
Okay.
I'm just being strange.
I think that
No, that's perfectly acceptable. This is Conlangs. Strange is good.
maybe like the bilabial trail could be like an exclamation of some sort, like
Okay.
oh my gosh.
Sure.
Is that a separate word?
No, it's
No,
not.
we
We
have
could make it one.
But I mean,
That's what we.
That's my mistake. No, it was originally created as one. Well, we could separate it. Votes to separate. Votes to keep it together. Votes to separate again. That's even. I vote to separate. So by edict. So yes, it is another word.
So we have a syllable.
So what were you saying?
If you're slow.
I was saying that should mean like, oh my gosh.
Okay. Okay. So what's any idea about what the rest is, or no? Just that? It's okay. Okay.
The first sentence is, this is a paradox. The second sentence is, this sentence is false.
Like I said, high geek quotient.
It could be, oh my gosh, it's almost 6. We'll have to leave in 20 minutes.
Today I traded 6 barrels of wheat for some gold,
Okay.
and somehow that's 2 sentences.
It's entirely possible, yeah.
Catch the dog before you fall.
I am rich. I've just successfully stolen all the gold from the dragon's castle.
Excellent.
Great. So we've got a bunch of ideas for what this means, right? And we've got one idea for sort of a sub-part, being some sort of exclamation, interjection, some sort of, not necessarily semantic, but it imparts some sort of meaning, which makes it almost a meaning. Or maybe it's an interjection, it's a real word, who knows. So first off, let's vote on that one. Shall we have the mean more or less that? Votes yes? Okay, that's pretty much unanimous. Now, do any of you really like any of someone else's ideas? No? You all only like your own?
I liked his
Dragon.
with the dragon and the castle.
Dragon came up a few times.
Yeah, let's pick one of those words to mean dragon.
Yes? Okay, which one means dragon? Can any of you pronounce this?
I should stop leaning back.
Yeah. We'll make sure there's a wall behind you.
Can I ask the whole sentence?
Yeah.
Here. Sen.
Set.
See. Is that what? No, it's like.
That's
Oh, yeah.
sheep though. No,
Oh,
but
so
that is
that's
a sheep. Sheep.
Right. Oh yeah. So set. Vishkar.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Dishkar.
He kre.
Okay. So, are any of these the name, a word for dragon or some particular dragon for that matter?
Vishkar the dragon.
Vishkar. Vishkar could be the name.
Vishkar?
Yeah, Vishkar could be its name.
Dishkar. Okay. So, is
So
this
maybe Seep
is
is dragon. But
where?
Seep.
Sheep?
Oh,
Sheep?
sorry, sheep.
Sheep? Dishkar? So this is sort of dragon. Dishkar, his name? Its name? Does this dragon have sex? Have
A sex.
Is this dragon sexed? Which is still interpretable, but technically correct.
Is it a gendered dragon?
Yes, is it a gendered dragon?
Then we get into the issue of which one it biologically is and which one it identifies with. Having been in the language and gender class with you.
Yes, yes. We could actually have the language make that distinction if you like. That's entirely possible. But, okay, what do you guys think of sheep means dragon, and Vishkar is some particular dragon's name. So, dragon. Well, technically that's that's standard. You just write the first letter and period to abbreviate names. So we've got some sort of sentence about an a dragon. This means, or something like so, is this the dragon talking? Is this someone else talking? Is this someone talking to the dragon? Is this someone talking about the dragon? Is this like some sort of general statement of a historian about dragon talking in a haughty voiceover? What is the context of this statement? Again, blurt it out.
Doesn't seem like a historian would use an exclamation, so I would say it's either someone like yelling about the dragon. Didn't really picture the dragon like actually talking to someone with an explanation. I picture dragons like kind of like, I don't know.
Could be
laid
making
back,
sort of
like-
bombastic speech.
What?
Could be making a speech about how glorious it is.
I guess so. I just picture like the people he's terrorizing to be more agitated.
So you think this is some terrified villager speaking?
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. That gives us context. So this is a terrified villager speaking. Any objections or better ideas? No? Okay, good.
It could be like, what's that noise? Period. Oh my God! You described the dragon. He's coming. Something like that.
That's plausible. Also, let's finish this up in another 3 minutes or so, and then we'll have the last 10 minutes for pragmatics in the class. So, one thing that we've got unusual here is this "bleh" as a word. This isn't very common in natural languages, but I can think of unless I can give an example. But it's perfectly reasonable. In fact, there are some sort of more common sorts of meta words that are sometimes used. For example, Klingon, Latin, various other languages, these are both common, have parts of the sentence mean things like, I know this because someone told me. Or, I know this because I have faith in some ultimate something or other, and therefore I know. Or, I know this because I saw him do it. Or, I have no idea I'm pulling this out of my ass. Or, I don't really believe this, but I have to tell you this anyway. Or, various other things that sort of are contextual things. How you know this, whether you believe in it, what your intent is. I'm telling you this as a friend, please don't take offense. I'm telling you this as a challenge, want to fight. I'm asking you a question. That's actually quite common. Ka, ma, in Japanese and Chinese respectively. I'm various other. You can probably think of various sort of meta things you're trying to say about a sentence, and this could go anywhere. Latin, I think, always puts them at the beginning of a sentence. Klingon, I think, integrates them into the words where you've got a verb and it's got an attached morpheme that says how much you believe it. I think Latin also has a sentence. I may be misremembering. So, considering that we have the would we want to have the tsuk be something also sort of similarly meta, or be a real word? Votes?
Perhaps we can have the tsuk be an actual word and the br just be there to emphasize the tsuk.
Okay. Or it could be comment on the tsuk or for them or cute.
It could be a particle that always has to come like in the second position for the sentence.
Yeah.
I know some languages do that.
Any votes? What other others?
I like the idea of it modifying the tsuk.
Okay. So this sort of tsuk is sort of a yeah. Is sort of a little bit of a clause in some way. I think that's cool. Anyone else? Other ideas? Comments on this idea? Do you like this idea? Yes? Yes? So let's do that. Yeah. So
Bless you.
okay. If soup means bless, then that's a confession of bless. Yeah. And like bless you that the dragon eat you, or maybe this is like a Cthulhu cult. May Cthulhu eat you first.
Whoa.
Could be. I'll note a few things that we don't have that we maybe or maybe not want to include. We don't have tone, or specifically we don't have a tonal language. We don't have any. Yeah, I'll not use a fancy terminology. We don't have tones. So we don't have, for example, anyone here speak Chinese? No Chinese? Yes?
Yeah, that like a bit, but yeah.
Can you do the Ma series?
Yeah, ma, ma, and they all mean like I call my grandmother ma is, and I have my mom as ma, and it's
And
all.
then there's also horse and question and I forget what the other.
I don't know.
You
all
can
of
accidentally call your mom a horse if you don't know the tones right.
Yes, actually.
If you talk to your mom and you think of English as like you're raising the tone of your voice, like in English you raise the end of your sentence, and if you do that in Chinese, you end up calling your mom something else. And I've done that before, and she gets really mad. So.
Yeah. So do we want to have tones, or is that a little complicated?
No.
No. Okay. That's there's more, but we'll cover that later. So do a few of you have this written down, so I can copy it off of you guys later? Good. Okay. So that's actually pretty far progress for one day. Right? We've got phonetic inventory, we can create words, we've got 2 sentences that we just need to back translate and figure out how they came to be this way and what's happening with them. But that's fine, that's actually good. First off, if any of you have not signed in, do so. Or do so before you leave. This class is 1 to 2 units. The syllabus is in the reader, and I will send out the reader to everyone who has given me their email. If you haven't filled out the polls on LiveJournal, do so, preferably before the weekend. If you haven't gotten a LiveJournal account, do you all have LiveJournal accounts by now? No? Okay, do it. It's easy. Go online. LiveJournal.com. Sorry?
Why are we having that?
There's a LiveJournal community for this class, and that's where you'd be discussing things, that's where I'm going to be announcing things, that's where you post homework. Well, there's only one real homework, but that's where you post discussions, drafts, anything related, etc. And that's where you go for news and polls and in case they become necessary. If you're taking this class for 1 unit, how many people are doing that? Show of hands.
I'm not sure. But
Not sure yet? Okay. If you're taking it for 1 unit, then I need to know your name by the end of this class, and you need to have come to most of the classes. That's it. It's really pretty simple. I need to know your name also does mean you do need to participate. I know that sounds scary. And I know some of you don't like speaking out, and some of you do. And that's okay. I'm obviously, I guess, on the speaking out part of the spectrum, but I realize not everyone is, and some of you are a little intimidated by speaking out in front of a class or in front of me, because, oh my god, I'm a teacher or something, whatever. But either get over it, or talk to me outside of class, or participate online, whatever. I really don't care what forum you participate in, just to make sure that you are involved. If you're doing this for 2 units, there is a final project. What this involves is creating your own language. You'll basically be paralleling the steps that we do in class. Don't parallel the language that we do in class, obviously, make your own. And you're going to need to have it by the end of the semester able to translate the Babel text, able to be described in various ways, describe the syntax, morphology, phonetic inventory, etc. All the stuff that we're doing in class, really. So that someone can understand what you've got, what you've done. And you are going to need to translate a few things that I will tell you about later. They're not hard. The Babel text is not trivial, but it is entirely doable within one semester. We did this last year, and it worked out quite well, actually. Do any of you have questions about that? Yeah?
Should we start, like, even tonight, coming up with a phonetic inventory?
That would be a good idea.
Just step by step as we go through the class.
Yeah.
Class language and then do our own language at the same time.
That would be a good idea. I do not require it. But I'm going to say you will fail this class if you try to do it in the last week, because you won't.
What should we do in order to try to ensure that we're not making a Euro clone accidentally?
For one, I would recommend that everyone post what they make on LiveJournal. And you can get feedback from me and from other people there. For two, you can bring it up in class, and that's perfectly fine. Most of what we're going to be doing in class is working on this language. But I strongly encourage you guys to bring up your own ideas in class. Hey, I had this neat idea in my language, maybe we can do it in this one. Or I just wanted to run this idea by you guys. Whatever, it's all good. This is about you guys creating your languages, and we're creating this one as an example and as a way we can sort of collaborate on one. But yes. Other things is you can sort of tell in certain ways.
Okay. Is it the glosses are similar usually? Or?
Glosses are, if you think of anything and you find yourself thinking, well, what is that? And just sort of default to English as your example of how it's structured, then you're probably making a Euroclone. That's usually a good test. The syllabic, the phonotactic set that we chose is pretty Englishy, not as extreme as it could be. For that matter, English isn't as extreme as it gets, because, for example, there are things in Russian that I can say perfectly fine, and you never ever have them in English because they lap too many syllables together that are weird. Like, stat. Stat. It's a word. It's statia, is normally, which is like, by the way, more or less. K is a separate word, but it's pronounced altogether. Which is actually an interesting point. You can have words that aren't survivable by themselves. K isn't, you can't just say k. You always k something, and when you actually are pronouncing Russian, that's when you can tell if someone's native or not. They say k statia, and no one who's native will ever say that. But that's how it's written. That's basically it. Any other questions on that? No? Yes?
Are we gonna stick with IPA, or will we come up with different writing systems?
We will stick with IPA for writing out the phonology. Once we get into making the writing system, we may or may not abandon IPA for writing, for general use. That will entirely depend. We'll do that. Actually, we can do that next. But when describing sounds, stick to IPA. You can, when writing them, I don't care if you use IPA or Conlangs extended Xampa, which is something that sounds complicated, but if you print this out in blue, it's got things that are all on your keyboard, which IPA does not. This is the standard way to write an ASCII format that is used on the Conlang mailing list. There are other ASCIifications of IPA. I'm going to ask that you use this one, just because I asked you to, and I'm going to. Does that answer your question? Mm-hmm. Okay. Again, if you want to say something, don't bother raising your hand unless I'm trying to make a long point. Just say it. Really, I'm not going to take offense. This isn't a big class. We'll be nice and small and grouped together once we really get cut. Are there any questions about the structure of the course, the course control numbers, anything like that? No? Y'all have the new room number, right? Wheeler? If you don't have it, copy it from someone else.
I thought it was Janelle.
204.
Wheeler.
Oh, Wheeler.
Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah, we're not meeting in this room next week.
Alright.
Do any of you have any other questions I should address?
So it is going to be considered an room, which is supposed to say our name.
Well,
Every time we speak up.
Yes, please.
Certainly. And it's going to be Wednesday, 4 to 6.
Oh, yes. Wednesday 4 to 6, or do you guys prefer later? Do you guys prefer having class Monday, Wednesday, all on Monday, different times? Is
I
this
can't
okay
do
for
later.
everyone?
I can't do later on Wednesdays, but
First off, is this okay for everyone?
Yeah.
Wednesday 4 to 6? Sort of?
I'm gonna be late an hour every single day.
What times would be better for you?
If you do it Monday, Wednesday, 5 to 6, that'd be awesome.
What do the rest of you think about that?
I'd much rather do 4 to 6.
Okay.
Or Monday,
Maybe Monday 4 to 6. Can't do.
Monday, Thursday.
I can't do Monday after 5:30 because I'm teaching a different decal.
What are you teaching?
Introduction to Fantasy, Cosmic Genesis.
Oh, you're the one who's doing that.
Yeah.
Stay. I want to talk to you.
Okay.
I don't know. Actually, let's go around with names since we never really did that. I'm Sai. As far as you guys are concerned, as far as the university is concerned, my name is Ilya Alexandrovich Starikov, but nobody can say that, and I haven't used that name in 4 years. So, I'm Sai.
I'm Rajan.
I'm Heather.
Daniel.
I'm Kevin.
Mark. Stas.
Stas.
Mark.
Grace.
Jody.
Nat.
William.
Now.
NAT.
Okay. So, I guarantee I will forget that by next time, but that's okay.